Chapter 23. The next page. The old fishing boat isn't a tenth as nice as the yacht. Rust has overtaken most of its paint, and everyone shares cramped bunk rooms. The entire vessel creaks each time they encounter a large swell in the water. And even if she closes her eyes to pretend she is on a luxury cruise, she still can't escape the funky smell. But, despite all its problems, the floating rust bucket is heaven on earth for Sophia Faraday. It is her home, because from now on, home will be wherever her friends are. Upon the main deck, she stares over the railing at the endless sea. There isn't a cloud in the sky, and the morning sun showers her with warmth and light. As the salty breeze plays with her hair, she thinks back on the past evening. Not what happened at the beach with Lynn, but the things that happened after. She thinks of how she laughed and cried when they picked up Micah a half-mile down the road. He had, of course, been Ettore's mystery man guarding Columbia and Cook, armed only with a pair of scissors he used to cut them free. Afterward, she listened with delight as Micah told the tale of their wild flight from Norway to Iceland. Dario, whose sole experience piloting a plane had been with Sophia, turned everyone religious as they prayed for their lives. But the best moment of all came when she stepped onto the boat. There she was tackled by 70 pounds of jumping, licking, tail-wagging Bixby. "We thought he was dying after the North Cape," Kyla told her. "Then we realized he was just depressed without you." Bixby hasn't left her side since. Even now he sits beside her, nose poked through the bars of the railing to sniff the briny breeze. Sophia lazily trails her fingers along his head, and he gives them a single loving lick. "Feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?" a voice asks. Micah leans against the railing next to her, holding out a granola bar in foil wrapping. "You hungry?" Sophia takes it and opens it. She is already chewing her first bite when she remembers her manners and says, "Thanks. I've barely had anything to eat the last couple days." She swallows and asks, "But what did you mean? What feels like a lifetime ago?" "Since we all met in Vegas," he explains. "It's only been a few weeks, but doesn't it feel like so much longer?" Sophia thinks back. She remembers how afraid she'd been. She remembers hating Micah after he snatched her pistol outside the map room. She remembers how worried she was that they wouldn't let her get Bixby, that he would die alone in her motorhome. She remembers her midnight talk under the stars with Ettore, when he taught her about space and time and his theories about the sun causing all their problems. She shudders to think again about the wild-haired man, Leroy according to Einar, and how Micah saved her life. He's right. It does seem like a lifetime ago. "Maybe that's because life has changed so much," she replies. "You know, when I first slipped forward, there were a few months when I thought life would never be good again. But I was wrong. Even on the bad days, life is worth everything. Because as long as we're alive, it means we have hope and beauty and meaning. And knowing there are people to share those things with, well, that just makes the bright things even brighter." "Well said, Soph." The smile on Micah's face radiates pure joy. "Well said." A long silence ensues as they gaze into the infinite blue of sea and sky, but it isn't awkward. Words aren't always necessary between friends. "So what now?" Sophia asks, finally breaking the comfortable silence. "What's next?" "Relic number 2, I'm guessing," Micah replies. "Actually, Ettore said he wants to meet with everyone about that. Says he's got some things to explain." He glances at his wristwatch. "Everyone's supposed to be in the mess hall in 5 minutes. But before I go, I was wondering if you could finish your story." "Story?" she asks, befuddled. "What story?" "The one about the old woman," he answers. "The one you told me on the plane. It's been bugging me so much. I know you killed her, but you never said how. For some reason, Sophia doesn't feel threatened by the memory anymore. A vision of Eleanor wafts in front of her mind's eye, but now she is just another phantom. She can't hurt Sophia. The pistol, she answers. I was duct taped to the chair, but only my arms. I could use my legs, so I was able to move around the room with it. Slowly, but I could. I could even get up the stairs. It was dangerous with a heavy chair attached to me, but I could do it. What I couldn't do was get through the basement door. She kept it locked. Anyway, I spent all night using my feet to open her cabinets and bins, looking for anything that could help get me free. Then I found it. The pistol. It was tough, but I grabbed it with my feet and managed to lift it up to my hand. I positioned myself so I could point it right at the bottom of the stairs, then started shouting like something was wrong. She hurried down to check on me and left the basement door open, just like I was hoping she'd do. When she reached the bottom of the stairs, I shot her. Twice. She died right there. After that, I hauled myself upstairs, found a kitchen knife, and used my mouth to cut myself free. And that's it. The scars, he murmurs, nodding toward her wrist. Without breaking her gaze from the ocean, the girl nods grimly. Sophia Faraday, Micah announces. You are, without a doubt, the most incredible girl I've ever met. I'm glad we're on the same side, because I'd be terrified if we weren't. I'm glad too, she replies, unable to hide her delighted smile. Well, I gotta hit the john before our meeting, says Micah, backing away from the railing. I'll see ya in the mess hall. Micah leaves, and Sophia is alone with her thoughts once more. She could spend these minutes wondering about a million unanswered questions. She could wonder about the distant shores where her journey might bring her. She could wonder what other people, whether friend or foe, she might meet along the way. She could wonder about the fate of Lin Lai, and whether the Empress of Time will meet up with them again. She could wonder about all the mysteries and riddles Einar left cluttering her brain. She could wonder what it will be like to see her family again, after they have all the relics and can reassemble the Antikythera device. But she doesn't want to wonder about the future any longer. Nor does she want to dwell on the past. She wants to fill herself with the present. Because the present is where her friends are. Her new family. And they are more than enough. Sophia turns away from the ocean and meanders to the mess hall. The windowless room's grimy walls and offensive odor fit right in with the rest of the ship. Everyone else is already there, so she sits in the cleanest seat she can find and gives Ettore her attention. The tailored physicist stands in front of them. As always when at sea, he looks a little green, like he might lose his breakfast at any moment. On the floor by his feet are his briefcase and Lynn's backpack. Thank you for joining me, Ettore greets them. I hope you enjoyed a well-deserved rest last night. Not much, thanks, Dario replies, scowling. Micah's snoring could wake the dead. Keep talking like that, and you might find out, threatens Micah, though his tone is empty of any real hostility. Ettore ignores their bickering and continues. After what happened last night on the beach, he says, there are some things I think I should tell you, and some things I should show you. Some are things of which I am deeply ashamed. I thought by keeping them secret, I could rewrite my past. But I was wrong. I realize now that I must own my past. In doing so, I can live a more honest present. Everyone stares at him with rapt attention. Ettore sighs deeply, then says, I am a fraud. Even worse, I am a thief. What do you mean? Asks Micah. I mean many things, Ettore replies. It goes all the way back to my career as a physicist. I received awards and international renown for the work I did. Even after I disappeared, books were written about my theories and discoveries. Yes, I was an accomplished physicist, but I was not the brilliant one everyone thought I was. Much of my work I stole from lesser known, but much more brilliant men and women than myself. What I was truly brilliant at was blackmail, and whenever one of them threatened to expose me, I would use whatever leverage I had to keep them quiet. I was young, as many young people do. I valued success and fame over the truly nobler things, like integrity, honesty, and decency. It was my lust for fame and influence which ultimately led me to my great act of thievery. I was speaking one day to an archaeologist friend of mine who was studying an ancient artifact found at the bottom of the ocean. They called it the Antikythera mechanism. Upon hearing this, the members of Ettore's crew glance with surprise at one another. Kira and Kyla mumble back and forth. Of course, the one he was studying was corroded from years spent on the seafloor. He told me, however, that one day a few Vatican officials came to study it in private. Naturally, he found it odd that men of the church would be so interested in what was essentially an ancient set of gears. As they were leaving, he overheard parts of their conversation. They spoke of his Antikythera mechanism as being no threat. They said it could never work in the time machine, and that theirs, stored safely in the Vatican's archives, was still the only working piece of its kind. So you broke into the Vatican, Sophia says, quite matter-of-factly. That's why you already had the suitcase when Lynn first met you in Rome. You were planning to return to the library. You knew you could learn more about the Antikythera device because you'd already been there once before, when you stole their mechanism. Ettore hangs his head and says, Yes, all the way back in 1938. I stole the mechanism and was on the run when I slipped forward to the present. Then I knew it would be safe to return to the Vatican and learn as much as I could about the Antikythera device, the time machine. I was returning to do exactly that when I met Lynn. And from there, I believe you know the main details of the rest of the story. He swallows and stares into the corner. For a moment he is lost for words. Then he says, I have had the mechanism this whole time, here in my suitcase. I told myself the reason I could not show you was because I did not fully trust you. But Lynn is right. I was the untrustworthy one. I see now that the true reason I hid it from you is because I was ashamed. Ashamed of my own dark secrets. Ashamed that if I showed you, I would also have to tell you the repulsive methods by which I acquired it. Ettore takes a nervous sip of coffee from his mug. He is unable to look anyone in the eye as he says, But that is who I was. It is not who I am today. I closed that book long ago, and today I want to start on a new page with all of you. He glances from one member of his crew to the next. His eyes are searching them for some kind of reaction, whether it be hatred, or pity, or understanding, or even forgiveness. Kyla breaks the silence. Well, can we see it? The mechanism? I mean, you've got it right there in the suitcase, don't you? Ettore grins and nods. He picks it up and places it on the nearest table. This suitcase, he informs them, is one I designed myself. There is a thin layer of lead and titanium alloy coating the entire interior. I believe it helps contain the relic's unpredictable effects on time. So far, at least, there have been no incidents. So long as the suitcase is latched and sealed. We don't need a science lesson, exclaims Micah. Just open it, will ya? Ettore undoes the clasps, opens the suitcase, and steps back. Everyone crowds around to gaze at what's inside. There are two things. The first looks like it is made entirely of burnished bronze. Dozens of gears and wheels, all different sizes, are interlocked upon a flat, inch-thick slab of bronze. There are also finely etched numbers and words, both on the bronze sheet and even on the gears themselves. The whole thing seems to radiate some kind of mysterious energy, filling the air around it with an electric crackle and hum. It is the Antikythera mechanism. That, explains Ettore, is the control panel for the entire machine. Unfortunately, I have no idea how to use it. By the time we have the other relics, perhaps I will have figured it out. The other item in the suitcase is a cylinder, 1 foot long and 4 inches in diameter. It reminds Sophia of the canisters in the drive-through lanes at her parents' bank. Unlike the bronze device, the cylinder looks to be made mostly of glass and steel or some other silvery metal. At the bottom of the cylinder, there is a small circular protrusion, which looks like it may be used to connect with something else. But the strangest thing about the cylinder is the pulsing, ghostly blue light emanating from its center. "What's this called?" Gabriel asks. Being smaller than everyone else, he has climbed onto the table for a better look inside the suitcase. "It is the relic from the North Cape," Ettore answers. "The one we took yesterday from Lynn. This is the Antikythera battery." "How do you know what it's called?" Kira asks. "Because we took something else from her too," says Ettore, bending to pick up the backpack. From it, he removes a leather-bound sheaf of yellowing paper. "Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Book of Relics." At this, there are whoops of cheering. "Well, what's it say?" Kyla asks, unable to contain her excitement. "Where are we going next?" "Let's close the suitcase first," Ettore replies, "and then we will look. Together." When the suitcase is shut, latched, and safe on the floor, Ettore lays the Book of Relics flat on the table. Respecting its old age, he gingerly opens it to the middle. Everything inside is written in black ink and by hand. On top of the left-hand page, in bold print, is that stretched-out E that Sophia recognized as half of the Greek letter theta. Below it is a sketch of the same cylindrical relic, now in Ettore's suitcase. And at the bottom of the page, the relic is given a name: the battery. On the right-hand page is an 8-line poem. Sophia reads it and cannot keep herself from laughing. It would have led them directly to the hidden room below the altar. "Are you ready for me to turn the page?" Ettore asks them. He is building the suspense as a parent might do with their children's Christmas presents. "Yes!" they all shout at once. Ettore turns the brittle paper gently to the next page. Every eye stares down at it, all except 2. Sophia isn't looking at the book. Instead, her eyes wander among the people gathered around it. She smiles. Gabriel notices and beams back at her. They don't share a word, because each already knows what the other is thinking. 3 weeks ago, they were 2 kids, alone in the vastness of an empty world. Not anymore. Wherever they go from here, at the very least, they will have each other. They will never have to be alone again.